Hello everyone, here is Anna, and today's video is a very different one from everything I filmed so far, and I should say I'm a little bit nervous about it. I don't know how it looks like for you, but since I've started my channel, I always wanted to bring something positive into my community. Yes, I was filming different types of videos, showing the professional part of my life and talking about music, but I don't remember I've ever showed you like an actual negative side of what a concert pianist means. The problem is that I grew up in a society where people say that if you are complaining, you are weak. You know, if you're unsatisfied with your pianistic career, well, it's your choice. Go study something else, get another job. And another very common thing I've always heard, especially during all those piano competitions that we take part in, that if you are complaining, if you're unsatisfied, let's say with the results of the competition or with the way the competition is functioning, it's just because you're a loser. It's just because you didn't win the prize or you didn't get the first prize, for example, because the winners never complain, you know. So basically it doesn't give you an opportunity, it doesn't give you a room to talk openly about what's going on inside this career, inside this classical music world, and not only talk openly about positive things, but also talk openly about negative stuff, because every job, every part of life and the world in general has its positive and negative sides. Another problem is, of course, social media, because it's a big part of our life these days. And even though I see a positive turn there, like people start talking more about their, let's say, health issues, insecurities, imperfections in the world of classical music, I don't see this turn, at least maybe not yet. I think the problem is also here that the world of classical music, the classical music itself, was always really depersonalized. Like the public only sees those statues, like in black dresses and frocks, being silent, going to the stage, playing their music and leaving all the time with stone-like faces and silent. So the public doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. What do actually those people feel? What do they think about while they play this music? Why do they play these pieces? And especially the public doesn't know about the negative stuff that is going on behind the scenes. So I thought I will do my tiny little step and tell you a couple of things from my personal experience. What does it actually mean to be a concert pianist? About things that bothers me, about things that I find really difficult in this very difficult job that I still absolutely love. I think I will start here not with some kind of romantic or ephemeral stuff like I lose inspiration or motivation sometimes, which obviously happens. But I think I will start with such a thing as money. I think money is the most common and the biggest problem of classical music society. And I'm not even talking about that, let's say, we're not paid enough or sometimes not paid at all, which happens often, that we're not taken seriously by the society, by the government. Not that we are freelancers and we totally depend on the amount of concerts that we get to play this month. But the main problem I see is the gap between the payment of different kind of musicians. So let me explain what I mean. Let's say there is a profession of a doctor. Well, you know, a doctor will always be paid better than, let's say, something who works in a supermarket. Just as an example. And of course, you can be a better doctor, you can be better educated, more experienced, but still, in any country, you will be paid relatively well. even though if, let's say, you live in a country with a better quality of life, with a worse quality of life, for your country you will be paid relatively well. But it's very different with classical musicians. There are some musicians that we call top musicians, and they get paid extremely, overratedly well. I've heard numbers like 50,000 euro per concert, and there are also at the same time musicians who can be similar educated, who can be talented as well. Maybe they are not as amazing as somebody there on the top, but they're still very good musicians, and they still do kinda the same job, and then they get like paid nothing, like 50 euro per concert, 100 euro, let's say. And in some countries, like for example in my country, in Russia, it's also normal to play for free. I mean, like, to work for free. This is very stupid. It's frustrating and it's bad. And I mean, why do two people who do the same job, of course, maybe one can be better and another one can be not so good, let's say, but still they're more or less do the same job. Why the gap is so huge? I would like somebody to control this kind of things in the society. This is my opinion. And even though maybe it can sound for you a little bit like objective, in the end of the day, it just comes to the problem, of course, that many musicians are paid very badly, and that they constantly struggle to pay their rent, to pay their food after like 10 years of education or even more. Does it really make sense to you? To me, it doesn't. Another problem is kind of connected to the money problem, and it's lack of stability. You know, especially during the pandemic, it showed us how unstable this job can be. As soon as something serious happens in the society, concerts, musicians, music is immediately forgotten. A paradox of this profession is that we have an incredible competition. There are definitely much more musicians than concert venues, and in the end of the day, what happens is that many musicians who were trained to perform, who finished a few music universities, they end up working in a music school. Of course, nothing is wrong with working in a music school, but the problem is that it's a completely different profession from what one studied and dreamed about. It doesn't really have to do anything with performing, and it's great if one enjoys doing it, but many musicians don't. And yes, many young musicians, when realizing what is actually their reality going to be till the rest of their life, get very frustrated, depressed, and unfortunately our education does not prepare us for that, for this reality. And then of course there is also no guarantee even to get this job after finishing a music university, which again leads to the problem of uncertainty and instability. Another big problem of music society, of classical music world, is a system of competition, to my opinion. These days, it's normal to think that one can only get concerts and contracts and a nice career after winning a big competition or getting some prizes. That's what the music society wants us to think. And especially we have a lot of competitions for pianists. Probably again because we can only be freelancers if we want to play concerts. We cannot work in an orchestra like some other musicians where they get a stable job, a contract, and all the things that come together with it. Generally, I'm not against of the idea of a music competition. Unfortunately, in the last 15 to 20 years, the system of competition has become a huge business. And I'm talking here less about those like big renowned competitions. I mean, in the end of the day, there are only like probably 10 of them in the whole world. But we have hundreds of competitions of like middle range and especially those small competitions. I've been to many of them, and I can tell you from my own experience that the organizers of such concerts are seriously just making money out of you. They don't care about competitors at all, and very often not about the members of the jury. The money price is very often shared. Like, can you actually imagine? Shared between the prize winner and the jury member who helped them. Many other things are going on there behind the closed doors, and very often it's a true nightmare. And of course, the last thing that the organizers of such competitions care about is a future career of the winner. Most of the time, you just get your prize and you are forgotten immediately, like the next day. You know, you can write that you won this competition in your CV, and it's probably the best thing what you can do with this prize. Big, renowned competitions are different, of course, but their main problem is corruption. So, unfortunately, you know, again, who knows who is a student of whom, and maybe paid somewhere, different things, except of your playing, decide. And it just shouldn't be like this, but I don't think it's really possible to make this system different, because music is not about competition. We all know it, we all repeat the same phrase over and over again, but it doesn't change anything. This business just continues to expand. And there is also a different way of getting concerts and managing yourself as a musician, but because we don't learn such things in music universities and nobody tells us about them, the young musicians, pianists, for example, they see lots of friends taking part in all those competitions, and they see on the first place, of course, the exceptions, people who were lucky enough to get something after a competition. And yes, so on the first place, of course, they simply don't know what to do, and secondly, this way just feels safer to them, so they start, you know, taking part in competitions for years and years. In 10 years of this kind of life, they realize it didn't really help and get frustrated, depressed, and sometimes just really lost. And if we leave the topic of the competitions and get to the concert themselves, here is another problem. Who chooses the musicians for the concerts? Concert venues, obviously. But the organizers of those concert venues are very often not musicians. So how do they judge? I have a feeling most of the time they choose people who are easy to sell. But not the people who are great musicians, the people who have some kind of vision, what are they doing, who have something to tell to the public. And of course, not all the organizers are like this, but I'm just talking about the things that are happening very often in this music world. And again, we are very lucky if directors of festivals and concerts have a great musical taste and they are patient music lovers, but very often it's not like this. The very last problem that I'm gonna talk today about, I mean, there are lots of problems, but I think it's enough for today. And this is a problem that is especially important for me because I do lots of social media, and it's very difficult to reach a big audience with classical music online. I mean, it can be sometimes very frustrating to prepare a video for hours and days and put your soul into it and all your knowledge, for example, and then there are like 200-300 people watching it, while thousands, if not millions, are watching videos about makeup, video games, and whatever else. I mean, nothing wrong with that, of course, but somehow you just want more people there for the culture, for classical music, and it's just frustrating sometimes. So guys, that was all the negativity I'm ready to bring into the world today. I guess you know it, but I just wanted to say it anyways, that first of all, I'm not trying to push you to write nice comments to me that, you know, we support you and everything is fine. It's not about that, like, not at all. And I love this job. It's not about me being frustrated right now in this moment, even though I guess maybe if not the pandemic, if I would play like many concerts now around, at least all the concerts that were planned, probably I wouldn't have this energy to come up with this kind of video. But anyways, even in the pandemic, I still love this job. I love music in general. I love to be on the stage. I enjoy doing social media about classical music. But I think it's important for all of us, whatever we do, to understand that it's okay sometimes to be negative. It's okay to be sad and frustrated. It's okay not to be grateful for whatever the great things we have in our life. We cannot always be grateful and positive. And I also wanted to show you a different side of my job, because most of the time, of course, I try to inspire you, I try to talk about positive things, but it's not always like this. There are many things going on behind the scenes, and I think that's why we, first of all, enjoy watching YouTube, because it's not a movie, it's about life. It's a real life. And that's exactly what makes us human beings. Sometimes being positive, sometimes being negative, having just different emotions. So I hope that was an interesting video for you. I was a little bit nervous, so yes, I guess I see you in the next one. Bye!